Alright, so you've made a whole bunch of different parts now. You got a lot of experience making some simple 3D models. Now it's time to turn up the heat, and this one's got to be good. Okay, now we're going to do some special things with this one too. So angle bracket is on page 175. It is a modeling exercise, and we're also going to do something very special with this model when it's done. Because, don't get me wrong, 3D models are cool and fun, but at the end of the day, the people making this thing still need drawings, right? So what can we do with this 3D model so that after it's created we don't have to draw a drawing one line at a time to be able to produce those construction documents or those working drawings that we need. Alright, so we're going to do something special with this one when it's done. Angle bracket. Start a new drawing using the 20a template. Create a layer called angle bracket. Follow the requirements for your layers. And then the drawing on the next page shows you what you're modeling. So basically it's a block with a hole going through a slope face, and it's got some special holes here called counter bored holes. A counter bore, if you looked at it, would be actually two holes. It's a large hole that goes partially into the material, and then a smaller hole that goes completely through the material the rest of the way. These kinds of holes are used when you have a fastener and you don't want the head of your screw or bolt to stick out over the top, right? So here's what we get. We get a little pocket for the head to rest into, right? And sometimes those have a slope on the sides for these kinds of fasteners. Well, that's called a countersink. That's a little bit different. But basically a counter bore is two holes, one large hole and then a smaller hole. Okay, so that's what we're looking at over here. 4 counter bored holes. So the next page, 176, gives us all the details we need in order to create this thing. So we have our sizes. We have a front view, top view, and right side view. And there's a variety of ways of making this thing. You can make this thing with a bunch of primitives if you want to. You could also make this with a couple of extrusions. And just depends on how you're feeling and what makes sense to you, right? The holes that you're working with, you have some dimensions for their location, and those are typical locations. Then up here we have this little note telling us about that hole. So this might be unfamiliar, so let's go over it. The symbol here means counter bore. Okay, it's like shorthand. So the counter bore, the big hole, has a diameter of 0.5. The next part of the note talks about how deep the counter bore goes down. So that 0.5 diameter hole goes down 0.20. And then you have the third part of our note, which says that the smaller hole has a diameter of 0.25, and that is a through hole. Goes all the way through the rest of the way. Alright, so what else do we need to know? The large hole cutting through this thing is a circle, like most holes are, right? It doesn't look like a circle in this view, or this view though, because it's on a slope and there's a little distortion going on in the top view and the side view. But the view out here, this auxiliary view, shows you the diameter of that hole, and it shows you the location. And I'm just going to give this to you ahead of time. Be careful, because the hole is not in the center of the face. Okay? You can't draw an X from corner to corner and expect that the hole is in the center. It's not. Okay? Follow the dimensions and you'll be fine. So it's an inch up from this edge, and it's an inch over from the right edge, and that would be the correct location for your hole. The hole does go all the way through the part, and we can kind of see that over here, right? That large hole passes completely through the part all the way. So what are we going to have to do? Well, we're going to have to create the block or the body of this thing. We're going to have to create our counter bores and then our through holes and subtract them. And then on this sloping face out here, we're going to have to create a circle so that we can extrude a cylinder all the way completely through this object and subtract it. At least that's how I would approach this. Okay, there's probably at least half a dozen ways of making this thing though, so you think about what steps would make sense to you. I'll give you a little hint though. If you're slick, there's an easy way to create this object shape using the Intersect Tool. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. You can think about it, or you can just proceed with however you want to go. Alright, but the Intersect Tool would be a slick way of creating the shape that we need for the body of this thing. When you're all done with this, you're going to want to hang on to it, because we're going to do some fancy special stuff with it in our next class next week. Alright, so that's the assignment. May the force be with you, and if you have difficulties, make sure you get in touch with myself or your 20A instructor if it's not me.